live from the Sky Lobby at PwC Towers. This is the 365 Message Center show. This week we're going to be talking about PowerPoint Live and launching into a presentation directly from PowerPoint into Teams. We can also now migrate content from Google Workspace into Microsoft 365. It's now just part of the service, and we'll be able to access files offline from mobile, from Teams Mobile. Let's get into it, Daniel.
You look like you're way up there, Daryl. Just be careful, don't fall or anything.
It's actually not too far off the street here in Auckland, but we've moved into a new office, and I thought I'd make use of the surroundings and make things a little bit more interesting than my office in the background. So this is my office today.
Hey, it's not bad, to be honest. I haven't been in a office. Well, I went into my company's office briefly, but I haven't worked from an office outside of my home office in well over a year, as most, I think, people would say as well. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and I think we are going to have some great discussion off of today's messages, and let's just jump into it if that's okay. Our first one is yours, Daryl, where we're talking about PowerPoint Live.
Yeah, I got this. Now, PowerPoint Live, it actually feels like something we've already talked about. So it's interesting, this message, usually if it's something we have talked about beforehand, it's got the little updated tag, and we can see when it was first published, but it seems they've republished this message. PowerPoint Live presents to Teams from PowerPoint for Windows. This is MC252704. Now, this is an interesting one. If I want to share a PowerPoint to an online meeting, I've got a few options, haven't I? I can share my desktop. I can share the PowerPoint window. I can upload the PowerPoint file. And those three options, you'll choose one or the other depending on what you need to do. This fourth option allows me to open up the PowerPoint in PowerPoint for Windows. And if I've got a Teams meeting running, then I can click a button and it's going to push that presentation into Teams. So this seems like it's just a small thing, and that it's okay, another way to push that document into a Teams meeting and run a presentation. But the interesting thing here is it's using PowerPoint Live, and I can still control the presentation, changing the slides and going through various things from PowerPoint for Windows. Does that excite you, Daniel? Is that something that you might try out if you are presenting something into Teams?
Yes, I think I'll try it out. I think, and I'm showing on screen the screenshot that was shown there, showing the button in PowerPoint. This is a very interesting PowerPoint example that we're given, one slide PowerPoint. But for me, I do a lot of demo when I present, and so I typically just default to a desktop, sharing a desktop, because I don't want to have to unshare, reshare, go through that. I just want to kind of show. But for those instances where I am really just presenting content, then I think this is something that I'll give it a try and see what works best for me, what is the easiest, and what is the best experience for those that are attending, because I think that's the two things you have to keep in mind, right? Is it good for you, and is it good for them?
I agree.
Yeah.
I know that when we say PowerPoint Live, that means it's the experience that a attendee can flick forward the slides if you've allowed them to do so. They can hit the reaction button and various different reactions come across the top. What I'd be concerned about as a presenter is the thing that I'm seeing on screen might not necessarily be the experience that my audience sees. And that's, if I was to upload that PowerPoint into the meeting and use what is it called? Is like the presenter layout, which you can use within the Teams meeting experience.
Right.
Then I know what I'm seeing is what they're seeing. But if I've got just a PowerPoint for Windows sitting there and I'm clicking away, I'm not necessarily mindful of what the audience sees unless I've got that open somewhere on another screen. So I think it's something to keep in mind as we're presenting. This is rolling out starting mid-May. You are going to need to have the latest version of Teams in Office when it's available. And it's also something that is restricted to just E3, E5, A3, A5, and government licenses. So you're not going to see it in the M365 for business SKU.
That, and not the frontline, the F SKUs either. So that's just something to keep in mind. And, we say, I don't know if we should start giving a disclaimer for anything related to Teams or to SharePoint, or what are the other services that haven't really had a good track record lately of meeting their rollout dates. But it says mid-May. We'll see if that actually happens. But yeah. So
yeah. Well, Daniel,
yeah.
Can you tell me about this next one? I think it's going to be of interest to organizations that are shifting from a certain platform, and certainly the partners that might be helping them do that.
Yeah, most certainly. This one is migrate content from Google Workspace to Microsoft 365, MC252941. And this is utilizing that in Microsoft 365, there's a migration manager. And for those that are familiar with it, you've been able to utilize Migration Manager for box migrations, as well as for on-prem, but file shares and such. And so if you have been using, you've been able to do Google Workspace, you've been able to do Dropbox and others, but you had to use Mover. So Mover was purchased by Microsoft back, I can't remember exactly right now, but I did a blog post recently on this.
About 2019.
Yeah.
It was the last Ignite that we went to. They were there with the booth.
So it's this is integrated in Microsoft 365. This is not having to go out to Mover, and what that gets you is all of that reporting capability within the Microsoft 365 Migration Manager, so that you can actually see what's going on. You can actually see one of the screenshots here that we're showing here on the screen, showing some of the reporting. It gives you that capability of discovery, so you can see the scan discovery that's going on, and you can kind of see the process along with other processes that you may be doing a migration at the same time. So this is pretty sweet. This is one of the ones they have targeted. Others will be happening, as I said in my blog post that I put out. This is the first one that's coming. This one is rolling out late April and expected to be mid-May when it's finished. And so for all of those that are utilizing this for your Google Documents and your data, you'll be able to get that all over into OneDrive and SharePoint, Teams, using a Microsoft Manager and straight out of the box, right? So being able to use the functionality that is provided to you within Microsoft 365. So the general availability late July. So this is begin rolling out for public preview for the late April through mid-May. So letting you know that is coming. I'm pretty excited about having more of those options available to you, but Dropbox and others I think are going to be important too to get in this space. So definitely be looking out for those coming in the next few months.
Yeah, it's good that it's giving admins and organizations options to consolidate some of those shadow IT locations to bring those files into a place where they should be.
Yeah, so I agree with you. So Google Cloud Storage, the Dropbox Several of those will be coming in the next few months. So I think it'll help with those organizations that are having to utilize, Mover or something else, to do the migration, to bring that in and get that reporting. All right. So let's talk about, installing apps in meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this message. Admins can install apps in meetings. It's MC252940. Admins can install apps into Microsoft Teams on behalf of their organization, and they can pin them, they can make them visible to people, they can make them available within their experience on the Teams desktop, on the Teams mobile. And this is, I think it's in preparation for what else is rolling out, the optimized meeting app experience within Teams, where you do have apps that will run within Teams, the Teams meetings experience. They will make Teams meetings more engaging. I think we've seen one there with forms where you're able to create a poll using forms, and it is available there to engage in during the meeting. So if your admins want to pin some of those or install some of those apps that you want everyone to have available within the meetings, then you can do so shortly. Now, this is using policies within the Teams Admin Center, and so the ability to create that policy and roll it out, make it available to everyone or to certain groups. It follows the same pattern we've seen for other apps within Teams, but this is just preempting and making sure that everyone knows what's available, and you can standardize that experience if you're using a certain third-party service or app that brings a great meeting experience to you. So that is rolling out beginning mid-May and expect to be complete early June. Not too much more to say about that, but looking forward to seeing that list of meeting optimized apps grow over time.
Yeah, I think they will grow. It's a space that is ripe for the taking, I think, to enhance. It's nice to have the platform available and the ability to enable this, and then having more apps come along to be able to fill that, to make your meetings engaging, whether there's regular meetings that you would have in a conference room, or a training meeting, or an educational experience, or whatever. I think it is, like I said, right for the taking to really enhance the meeting experience. So I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely. What have we got for you, Daniel? There's something that's happened with Whiteboard.
Yes.
There's a lot that's happening with Whiteboard now, but this is good news.
Yes, this is great news for Whiteboard. Whiteboard storage changing to OneDrive for Business, MC253185. This is a topic that we discussed actually in our conversation this past week when we were on Clubhouse. And this is all about Microsoft Whiteboard utilizing OneDrive for its storage of content rather than what is used now, which is Azure storage. And with this move, you get things like the content management features of having additional permission management, search, external sharing. You get all those compliance and governance goodies that you get with one. I mean, you get all that the functionality that you get in OneDrive with this move. So really like this. Now we're getting a really long heads up here because the timing is October of 2021, but it is something that I think we can start preparing for and understanding. Now, I think the biggest downfall of this, I don't know if it's downfall, but the biggest negative is that any of your existing content is not getting moved over. Now, you could kind of understand why. That's a massive migration process that would have to happen, and so that's not happening. So you will have content in two places, in Azure Storage and OneDrive, but just know that that's what's going on. But again, really looking forward to this. This is going to be one of those, can we remember when this happens to have this as a callback on the show. That's going to be maybe we should put a note in our calendar or something.
Exactly. I'll do that. Hey, the thing about this update too, I know once it arrives, it's going to be great. Here's the scenario. Whiteboard's great for engaging people in a meeting, giving them an opportunity to put in feedback and drop their post-it notes and their ideas. It's really good. And, I use Whiteboard, but I also use similar kinds of products. What we haven't been able to do is it's external sharing. That's the key one there that I'm happy about. That if you have external sharing enabled on OneDrive, then if I've invited guests into my meeting, or maybe I'm using a breakout room for running a workshop, as soon as I fired up OneDrive, all the people in my org could see it, but all my guests were like, okay, so I can't see a thing. But this will change, and that's really, really important. That's a big step for Whiteboard, apart from having all the other file data residency and compliance and governance bits and pieces. External sharing is huge.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. I did want to, I mentioned that the content was not going to be migrated from Azure to OneDrive. Microsoft's not going to do that as part of this, is what they're saying. But they said they will share more details on how you can migrate your content. So we'll see what that looks like. I would highly suggest you to do that if they make it available to you and it's not too complicated. I think that would be a great thing. Also, they're going to provide some information if in the future, probably update this message with if you want to opt in before October to try to get a preview experience. So just be looking out for that. Daryl, let's talk about our headline, shall we?
Yes, we shall. It's an interesting one. Access files offline in mobile. This is Teams Mobile. MC253494. You're working, okay, I'll paint the picture. You're working in Microsoft Teams Mobile. You're suddenly come into an area where the online signals are not so great, or maybe you've just found yourself out the country and there's no signals at all. So you go into the team that you need to access a file, and you go to the Files tab in your mobile, and sorry, you're offline. Now that's something, I don't know how many of us have faced that. We do a lot of work in all sorts of different places. I think this is a everyday challenge that we may face. Poor bandwidth or no bandwidth at all. But here's the thing. I've always found these sorts of you can access your files offline features interesting. If you're doing it with OneDrive and let's say files on demand, usually you don't know you need that file until you double click it. And so you're hoping that, did I access this file recently? Is it in my cache? Is it, oh no, it's not, okay. Or did I right click and say, I want to keep this on my device all the time? Yeah, no. Well, this update for the Teams mobile experience, Daniel and I were talking earlier and saying, well, would we do this from Teams, or would we do it from the OneDrive mobile app? Or there's another one to think about, the Office app. Yeah. Daniel, what do you think my experience was like when I tried this out? Because I know this is available coming to the Android app. That's what this notification is about. But it is available too in the iOS app. And what do you think my experience was?
Well, let me say, in a world with bad Wi-Fi, you need to access your files in Teams. So what was your experience? I would imagine your experience was you could open the file just fine. And then when you tried to do anything with the file, you had problems. Is that right?
You would be right. Yeah. So first of all, I did have to think, tap on that file, make it available offline. Done. Good. So then I tested it. I went into flight mode and made sure everything was turned off. Go back into Teams. Sure enough, I can tap on that little file with the green tick, open, There it is in the file view. I can read the file. Okay, well, let me edit that because I want to make some changes. So at that point, it opens up the Office app, the one that combines all the Office applications. The Office app says, you're offline. I can't get to that.
Beat it, bud.
Exactly. There's a second level to this, which we need to be mindful of if we, that's a file that I'm working on. It has to have been opened in the Office app recently. It'll be in the cache, and then you can work on it offline. Now, I know I'm making a bit of fun of this. I think it is still a good feature, but it's going to be more beneficial to you if you're going back to something that you've worked on recently.
Right.
And you've purposefully said, I want that offline.
That's the key, is that I think this is going to be useful for people who know that they're going to need a file offline. So they go to their mobile while they're online and they make sure that it's available offline. They open it up and they can work with it. So it opens up in the Office app and it goes through all that. Then, it should work better when you have gone offline. But if it's one of those experiences where you're like, oh, I'm about to lose Wi-Fi. Oops. Oh, I need this file. I'm gonna say offline. Okay, great. Now I have it. And now you'll have the same experience you did. And that's one thing. I'm really not liking the dissociation with OneDrive here. I would prefer it to just be in OneDrive. You in the interface. Where was that file? I marked it as offline because you could do that in OneDrive too. Did I do that in OneDrive or did I do that in Teams? Well, now I got to go look. I'd rather it just be all in one place. I think it's a nice feature, a helpful feature. It's just there's some things to consider, and so you're definitely going to need to train your users, especially those that are mobile, on how to do this.
Yep. But that's our headline. We still think it's going to be an interesting feature, and it'll be mostly helpful to you if you've been working on something recently.
Yeah, agreed.
So that is it rolling out? So this is
mid-May.
Rolling out to the Google Play Store in mid-May. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't remember when the iOS message came through, but I went to check and there it was in my work channel.
Yay.
Okay.
Well, speaking of OneDrive, I am excited about this one. Public preview. OneDrive Sync Admin reports in the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center, MC253597. This is, I'll scroll up real quick here. Sorry about that. A dashboard for you as a IT administrator when you are working with rolling out OneDrive Sync clients to your organization, managing that and reporting on where are we with that rollout. Okay, so this is beginning to roll out early May and expected to be completed by early June. So you'll be able to, as part of the deployment and adoption of OneDrive, be able to mark. Now we'll talk about how you do this, and it's a little convoluted, but be able to mark a client, mark a desktop, I guess, where you're installing it, and then get kind of that telemetry of what's going on. And what I mean by what's going on, it's sync status. So you'll be able to see, is it having issues? Do I need to proactively talk to that user and help them? Wouldn't that be awesome? Because I find that OneDrive Sync is amazing for me, but I talk to other people, sometimes they're like, oh, I have problems. And all I have to do is walk them through some things and it gets all fixed and no more sync issues and everything. I'm like, oh, wow. So if you could do that, wouldn't that be great for adoption, great for your organization, for your people to get their work done, right? And actually be able to use the tools and not try to go off and use some other tool to do syncing. But it also helps you manage the known folder move rollout, right? And be able to look at that. Where are we with that? To be able to see, are users is it enabled for certain, for these users so that, now their desktop, their My Documents, and their My Pictures are being synced with OneDrive as well. So it's actually fantastic to have this capability. Now, there's a couple things here. This is admin facing, right? So you have to be an admin to be able to see this report, obviously in the admin center. And it's opt-in only. So that kind of, okay. But I'm clicking on the additional information here because this walks you through the overview of what you need to do and how you need to enable it. Okay. So, and it talks about when it'll be released and when it's going to be available to you. But I want to scroll down here a little bit on this document and show you, okay, here are the requirements. There's a few requirements about the sync client and all that. You also need to have making sure that all of your client devices can access this URL, which is a special URL that Microsoft is using that your clients are going to ping to. So you got to think about the architecture here. You have your Microsoft 365 admin tools in the cloud. You've got your clients all over the place, on your machines connected to your domain, whether that domain is on-prem domain synced to the cloud or it's in the cloud domain. But somehow those machines need to report saying, hey, here's my status. So you have to allow this URL, making sure, if you have any firewalls, whether those are software or hardware that are filtering content, they need to make sure that you get to this clients.config.office.net. Now, what is it that they're going to be doing? Well, they're going to be reporting using a tenant identifier. So it's a tenant association key, which this page walks you through on how to get that key. So you go to config.office.com, you go through the process, you get this key. Now, when you go through and get the key, it may take a few moments for it to show up, this tenant association key. Now, what do you do with this association key? This goes on to those clients on your machines so that when it reports this client ID or this association ID, it reports the client ID so you could see what's going on. Okay. So how do you do that? Well, there's a few ways. You could do this by group policy via registry. So put a registry key in, and one of those, one of the keys is a string with that key that you got, of course, that I just mentioned. Another way is you could do a command line, and this could be, you could push this out through, if you have a startup script, for instance, managed by group policy that every machine runs through when they log in, you could add this to that, or you could use the sync admin reports GPO to do that. So it walks you through how to do that. I would test this. Now, speaking of testing, well, I'm going to highlight this important bit. It may take 3 days from the point of implementing the GPO and enabling that on the devices for it to show up in reports. So just know when you get started and do this, it may take 3 days. It's not going to be instant. So let me scroll back up here. So in this box, it's talking about they recommend a gradual rollout. Okay, so they recommend doing a few test devices per day, then maybe going up to 100 devices per day, and then ramping up from there, but doing no more than 10,000 devices per day until you finish. I don't know why. I don't know if there's some sort of, maybe that's a magic number for new devices. It thinks it's doing some sort of spamming. I don't know. But they're saying 10,000 devices per day, new devices per day is your limit. So no more than that is what they're recommending, I guess. Because it does say recommend, not is the absolute maximum. Okay, that was a lot of information there.
Huge process.
It's a huge process, but IT admins, we're used to it. So I think it's a little complicated. It sure would be nice for, I would say, the OneDrive client to be going, I'm already logged in as the user, so I kind of know what tenant I'm associated with in one way or another, right? I know, and let me check, does that tenant have this turned on? Oh, it does? Okay, I'm going to report my status on stuff. I think that would be a whole lot easier, but, maybe there's a reason why they're doing it this way. I don't know. There's a lot of steps, but I think there's a lot of value if you're rolling out OneDrive or you're having issues with OneDrive. You've got users that are complaining or get a handle on what's going on. I think this is going to be very important for every organization to do this. For small organizations, all you need to do is get that key and add it to the registry. Done. No big deal. For very large organizations, use a GPO. You're used to this probably, and so you can just manage that rollout. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it makes sense to you, Daryl. I'm waiting for everyone else to answer, so we'll just sit here and wait.
Oh.
All right. Enough about that.
Enough.
If that's okay.
Enough. Quick mentions, man. Quick mentions.
Let's do it.
Make it quick, though.
Let's start with yours, if that's okay.
That's okay. You've just been talking.
Mm-hmm. Shut up.
How rude.
I'm going to shut up.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this one is the WorkLink book support enabled in Excel for the web. This is a MC 253184. What?
WorkLink book support. I think that's what you said.
Workbook link.
There we go.
Okay, WorkLink. WorkLink book. Maybe it's the air up here that's getting me a bit dizzy. It's a quick mention, but it's also a big deal for those who are working in workbooks, and you open them up in Excel on the web, and there's a whole lot of connections to other workbooks. In the past, you've had to open them up on your desktop and use the Excel for Windows to make all those connections and refresh figures and numbers and various things. Now you can do this from within Excel on the web. I don't know to what extent there might be some limitations, but it's good to see that some of the Excel Online experience has been improved, that you can make those connections across all the different workbooks and update them. So this is begin to roll out August, hang on, this feature began to roll out August 2020 and is available to all Excel for web users today. Why are we even putting this in? What the heck?
I know. And so I agree with you. The began rollout August 2020. They totally forgot to tell us. And here we are, 8 months later. And it's now available. Surprise! I will say I have had way too much experience with this, working with people going, why won't this file open up? With stuff like this, so it is good to see. However, we've apparently already seen it because it's been here a while.
With those same people, did they suddenly go quiet around August, September, October last year?
Surprisingly so. All right.
Ooh. All right, tell me about your one.
Mine one is actually Microsoft Lists Grid View Keyboard Improvements. This is MC252939. When we've talked about Microsoft Lists before, I've done posts about it and webinars and all that. So Microsoft List is a fantastic working method to get into your list from SharePoint and OneDrive. You could store list in OneDrive. What this is you'll be able to, there's a grid view, which is very similar to the way you could do data sheet view with SharePoint List in the past, but it's actually a whole lot faster and more powerful. But it's very, very similar. This is giving us keyboard shortcuts for going through and working in that view. So if you're used to doing keyboard shortcuts and things like Excel, where you just like tap, 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 and you're working through all your cells and, your data entry, then this is awesome. But then it's not awesome because some of the information, the way you work with this is not exactly the same. For instance, pressing enter will enable you to edit that field. So you're going to press tab to get over to your thing, and then you have to hit enter to get into it. In Excel, you would press like F2, or you would just start typing, I guess. So you will need to get a little, get some practice with this, right? But if you are a data entry queen or king, and this is your thing, then this is going to be nice for you, because you're, instead of having to go to the mouse and do all of that, you're going to be able to just fly through data entry in grid view. So this is starting to roll out for targeted in late April, and which is, already passed and completed mid-May. Oh, by the way, welcome to May, everybody. Standard will begin rolling out mid-May and completed rollout in mid-June. All right.
Boom. You know what, Daniel?
Yes.
We have often had to skip over this last segment, but there is a callback this week.
Yay!
Yes. We're calling back to a feature called New File Sharing Experience in Microsoft Teams. So, harken back with me now to MC 240303, and it was first published in February 17th this year. This is a experience where when you upload a file into a chat within Teams or within a private meeting, then you're going to see some new sharing experiences as you upload that file. We'll see a drop-down box underneath the file name. And this brings up a very familiar looking share dialog box where we can choose what kind of link we're creating, who we're going to be sharing it with, whether we want them to be able to edit or not. You know the dialog box. It's in SharePoint Online and OneDrive and Office documents. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it is sweet. And
yes.
The sharing experience in Teams so far has been not great. And so this is a vast improvement. I'm loving it.
Yep. Look, the interesting experience there, and I did a little video, I'll probably just drop it in the corner. There's another option there that you can share with the people that are currently in the chat. So that will add the people in the chat to the permissions of the file, and whatever you choose, whether it be edit or just view, then it's done for you. It will call out, though, that if you haven't, if someone else joins the chat or someone doesn't actually have access to the file that you're sharing it from, then you'll get that little warning to say, share that with that person via directly from OneDrive. But look, it's good to see that consistency in the file sharing experience. Good to see a couple more options there. I've even played with that one that said, share this link in review mode only, so that you don't get people opening the document, and even though they're looking at it, how sometimes it changes the modified by.
I do.
Yeah, well,
yes.
it's not going to do that.
It's
not going to do that.
Yep, that's awesome. So being able to have a just like you said, that review experience where you can look at it. All I want to do is look at it. Don't do any kind of weird,
or add comments.
Right. Add comments, not have to, actually edit. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
It is there
that.
now.
Yeah, it is most certainly.
It's supposedly finished mid-April. We know that some things have been running a bit late. Maybe it was just there and I didn't notice it. But that's the whole point of the callbacks, people.
That's right. That is exactly right. Well, that is the last message. I want to make sure we say, hit the subscribe button, pound the thumbs up, hit the bell. I don't know.
We went over this last week, Daniel. Wasn't it easier to just say, you know what to do, you know where to find us?
You know where you are and you know what to do, or something like that.
It is what it is. We are where we are.
So, yeah, we really appreciate you being here and love the comments. Love seeing people take advantage of this show. We love seeing, how it's helping your organization, helping you help the organization. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences and how things are going. So this is episode 193. It's fantastic. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us from high atop Auckland, New Zealand, Daryl. So appreciate that.
Yeah, it was good to be here.
Yep. We will catch you next time. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.